The air inside the Gilded Meridian, Manhattan's most exclusive private members club, smells of vetiver and old secrets. Eleanor Sterling stands by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her bespoke charcoal suit as sharp as the glass. She's mid-laugh with two venture capitalists from Zurich, her diamonds catching the morning sun. A man in a plain black t-shirt and dark denim approaches. He carries a weathered leather messenger bag. "Miss Sterling? I'm Julian Vance. We're scheduled for 9 to discuss the Series C for Vanguard Logistics." He offers a hand. Eleanor doesn't take it. She doesn't even look at his face at first, her eyes hook onto his scuffed sneakers, then trail up to his casual shirt. She recoils as if he's offered her a live grenade. "I'm sorry, did the service elevator break down?" Her voice is a frozen blade. The Zurich investors go silent. This floor is reserved for founding members and invited principals. Not delivery personnel. "I'm not the delivery, Miss Sterling," Julian says, his voice level and low. "If you'd check your—" "I don't need to check anything." "Security." She snaps her fingers, her face flushed with a cocktail of ego and panic. "Please remove this man before he disturbs the other guests. And find out who let a loiterer past the lobby." Julian drops his hand. His expression isn't one of anger, but of a man watching a car crash he tried to prevent. "Ms. Sterling, I'd suggest you take a breath." "I'll take a breath when you're on the sidewalk," she hisses. Two burly men in suits appear, flanking Julian. A few socialites at nearby tables lift their phones, sensing a viral moment. Julian doesn't resist. He simply adjusts his bag, gives Eleanor a long, chilling look of pity, and walks out with the posture of a king. Eleanor turns back to the Zurich men, smoothing her lapels. The city is falling apart. You can't even have a private meeting anymore without the rabble wandering in. She has no idea she just evicted the only man on the planet willing to sign a $400 million check for a sinking ship. 4 months ago, Vanguard Logistics was the crown jewel of the tech logistics world, valued at $1.2 billion. Today, Eleanor Sterling wakes up every morning to a balance sheet that looks like a crime scene. The company is burning $9 million a month. The runway, the amount of time they have before the bank accounts hit zero, is exactly 74 days. After that, the Sterling legacy becomes a footnote in a bankruptcy filing. Eleanor sits in her office on the 60th floor of the Freedom Tower. To the world, she is the titan of transport. Yale grad, daughter of a railroad magnate, a woman who has never known a no she couldn't buy her way out of. But the market has turned. She has pitched to 32 firms. 32 rejections. Unstable leadership, one leaked memo read. "Eleanor Sterling is a relic of 1980s ego in a 2026 economy," said another. She ignored them. She told herself they were intimidated by her brilliance. But as the cash drained, she reached out to the one name she feared, Vance Equity Group. Across town, in a loft that looks more like an art gallery than a corporate headquarters, Julian Vance pours a glass of mineral water. He grew up in the shadow of collapsed factories in Detroit. His father was a mechanic, his mother, a librarian. He learned to code on a donated laptop while sitting in his father's shop. By 25, Julian had sold a logistics optimization patent to Amazon for a figure with 9 zeros. At 40, he is the silent sovereign of Wall Street. He manages $5 billion in assets and has a success rate that defies mathematical probability. He has a rule, the casual filter. He never wears a suit to a first meeting. He wants to know if a partner values the brain or the brand. This morning, he's on a call with his lead scout, Cassandra. "Vanguard is a mess, Julian," Cassandra's voice echoes through the loft. "Eleanor is toxic. Her turnover rate for minority executives is 80%. She's a legacy brat with a god complex. The tech is the best in the world, though," Julian says, looking at a map of global trade routes. The algorithm they have for portside congestion? It's genius. It just needs a pilot who isn't trying to fly the plane into a mountain of vanity. James says don't do it. It's a $400 million risk on a woman who won't even look at the help. That's why I'm going in person, Julian says. Data tells you what a company is. A handshake tells you what it will become. Eleanor didn't Google Julian Vance. That was Marcus's job. Marcus, her terrified assistant, had sent her the brief, but Eleanor had swiped past the photo to look at the AUM, assets under management. She saw the $5 billion figure and assumed Mr. Vance would be a man of her stature, older, white, probably in a Brioni suit, smelling of scotch. She didn't see the Time magazine cover featuring Julian in a hoodie. She didn't see the interviews where he talked about demolishing the gates of the elite. At 9:15 a.m., back at the Gilded Meridian, Eleanor's phone vibrates. It's Marcus. Marcus, Ms. Sterling, Mr. Vance's office just called. They said the meeting is over? What happened? Eleanor scoffs, typing back while sipping her espresso. Eleanor, he never showed. Some vagrant tried to harass me at the table instead. Tell Vance's office I don't appreciate being stood up. I'll give him one more chance at 2 p.m. if he apologizes. A second later, her phone rings. It's not Marcus. It's her chairman of the board. Eleanor, the voice is trembling. I just got a notification from Vance Equity. They've pulled the offer. Not just the offer, they've issued a "do not invest" advisory to their entire syndicate. Eleanor's heart stutters. What? Why? He didn't even show up. He was there, Eleanor. He just messaged the board. He said he met the CEO, and she was, precisely as advertised, a liability to the future of the industry. Eleanor looks toward the door where the man in the black t-shirt had stood. The man whose hand she wouldn't touch. The man she called a loiterer. Outside the window, the New York skyline looks suddenly very, very cold. I don't know how you got the address for this floor, but this is an invitation-only sanctuary, Eleanor says, her voice rising so the surrounding tables can hear her authority. I was invited, Julian says. He keeps his hand extended, a steady anchor in her storm. If there's a misunderstanding, just call your chief of staff, Marcus. He confirmed the location last Tuesday. What I can see, Eleanor's voice sharpens to a piercing volume, is that you showed up to a billion-dollar negotiation dressed like you're headed to a dive bar. The Zurich investors exchange a pained look. The silver-haired one, Hans, whispers to his colleague in rapid-fire Swiss German. Das ist sehr peinlich. This is very embarrassing. Ms. Sterling, Julian lowers his hand slowly. I understand this is a departure from your usual aesthetic. But unexpected results require. Unexpected? Eleanor lets out a dry, jagged laugh. What's unexpected is a man like you thinking he can just wander into a private club and hustle serious venture capitalists. A man like you. The words vibrate in the expensive air. A woman at a nearby corner table looks up from her iPad. The maitre d' stops polishing silver. Julian feels that familiar, cold weight settling in his solar plexus. He's felt it at the valet stand when he's been handed keys to a car that wasn't his. He's felt it in boardrooms where he was asked to check the Wi-Fi router. I took a red-eye from Manhattan specifically for this hour, Julian says, his voice dangerously level. If you just look at my credentials. Your credentials? Eleanor's lip curls. What, a laminated ID from a gig economy app? Or some fake business card you printed at a kiosk? She turns toward the security station near the elevators. Excuse me. Can we get some assistance? Now. Two guards approach. One is Elias, an older man with graying temples and eyes that have seen too much. The other is younger, built like a linebacker, with a buzz cut and a hand resting perpetually near his belt. Julian tries one last time. Ms. Sterling, there is a massive miscommunication happening. I am the managing partner of Vance Equity. We manage $5 billion in assets. We spoke with your CFO 2 weeks ago regarding the emergency bridge loan. $5 billion. Eleanor actually snorts. Right. And I'm the Empress of Japan. She looks him up and down again, a slow, surgical scan designed to dehumanize. Let me guess, you saw the Wall Street Journal piece about our Series C. You thought you'd stroll in, drop a few buzzwords, and try to network your way into a handout. Hans, the older Zurich investor, tries to intervene. Eleanor, perhaps we should verify. No, Eleanor cuts him off, her eyes locked on Julian. This is exactly the kind of bottom feeder we have to guard against. I don't shake hands with people who lie to get past a velvet rope, and I certainly don't do business with people who don't respect the room enough to wear a blazer. The guards arrive. Elias looks at Julian with a flash of deep, silent apology. The younger guard steps forward. Ma'am? Is there a problem? Yes, Eleanor points a manicured finger at Julian. This individual is disrupting a private session. He's not on the list. He's not a member. And I want him off the property immediately. Julian takes a slow, measured breath. He could pull up his digital wallet. He could show her his Time 100 profile. He could call the club president, a man who owes him 3 favors. But he doesn't. Because this moment is the most honest due diligence he's ever performed. Eleanor Sterling didn't see a savior. She didn't see a titan of industry. She didn't even see a human being worthy of a 5-minute conversation. She saw a black man in a black t-shirt and decided he was a ghost. I'll go, Julian says. His voice is a low hum of absolute finality. No need for an escort. He looks at Elias. I know the way out. Oh, you'll be escorted, Eleanor snaps. I want to ensure you don't try to network in the lobby on your way out. She looks at the younger guard. Walk him to the curb. Make sure he stays there. Yes, ma'am. Sir, let's go. The walk across the marble floor feels like an eternity. Every set of eyes in the gilded meridian is a camera. Julian keeps his chin parallel to the floor. His stride is easy, professional, unshaken. As they reach the elevator, Elias leans in, whispering so only Julian can hear. I'm sorry, sir. Truly. Some people, they have eyes but they're blind. You're just doing your job, Elias, Julian says with a small, sad smile. Thank you. Outside, the air is sharp. Julian stands on the sidewalk, watching the yellow cab streak past. His phone buzzes. It's Cassandra. Julian? Marcus just messaged me. He said the meeting concluded abruptly. What happened? Julian looks up at the towering glass of the club. Change of plans, Cass. Cancel the dinner tonight. Book me on the next private charter back to the city. But the 400 million. I got my answer, Cass. It turns out the company isn't the only thing that's bankrupted Vanguard. Put a hard pass on the file. And notify the syndicate, we're out. Inside the lobby, Eleanor is radiant. She smooths her charcoal skirt and turns back to the Zurich investors with a winning smile. I am so sorry for that. You wouldn't believe the entrepreneurs who try to crash these clubs hoping for a miracle. Hans doesn't smile back. He's already packing his leather briefcase. Eleanor, that was remarkably blunt. Blunt is how you survive in this town, Hans, she says dismissively. Now, about the portside logistics. We are done, Eleanor. Hans stands up. We told you last week the numbers didn't work for us. We only came today because we heard Vance Equity was lead dogging the round. We wanted to see what Julian Vance saw in you. Eleanor freezes. What? If Vance is out, we are out, Hans says, nodding to his colleague. They don't shake her hand. They simply walk away, leaving her standing alone in the middle of the gilded room. Eleanor shrugs it off. She pulls out her phone and texts Marcus. That loiterer from the 9 a.m. slot, make sure his details are blacklisted. I don't want that type of investor wasting my time again. Eleanor is back in her sanctuary. She's already moved on, scanning her Rolodex for the next target. Marcus, her assistant, knocks on the door. He doesn't wait for her to say, "Come in." He looks like he's just seen a ghost. His face is the color of parchment. "Ms. Sterling. I need to ask you about the 9 o'clock meeting." Eleanor doesn't look up. "The Vagrant? Don't worry about it. I handled it." Security tossed him. "Why isn't Julian Vance responding to my emails?" Marcus swallows hard. He sets his tablet on her desk. It's open to a Forbes Power List page. The man security tossed, the one in the black t-shirt. Marcus's voice cracks. "That was Julian Vance, Eleanor. You told me to blacklist his details, but I needed to be sure. That was Julian Vance, wasn't it? The founder of Vance Equity." Eleanor's fingers froze over her keyboard. She didn't look up. "Lydia, don't be ridiculous. That man was a vagrant in a t-shirt. Julian Vance is a billionaire. So is the man in the t-shirt, Eleanor." Lydia's voice was barely a whisper. Did you even look at the brief I sent?" A cold, oily sensation began to pool in Eleanor's stomach. Why would I need to Google a man who showed up to a high-stakes negotiation dressed for a gym session? Lydia walked forward and placed her tablet directly over Eleanor's gold-plated desk organizer. The screen was pulled up to a Business Insider profile. The headline, "The Invisible Titan, Why Julian Vance is the Most Dangerous Man in Venture Capital." Eleanor stared. The face in the photo was unmistakable. The same calm, mahogany eyes. The same unassuming posture. The same man she had treated like a stray dog an hour ago. Her eyes scanned the bullet points below the photo. Net worth, $4.2 billion. Vance Equity, $5 billion AUM. Track record, 47 investments, 43 unicorns. Board seats, SpaceX, Nvidia, Stripe. Her hands began to tremble, not a metaphorical shake, but a violent, visible tremor that made her diamond rings click against the desk. "Lydia," her voice was a raspy ghost of itself. "Tell me this is a different Julian Vance." Lydia swiped to the next photo. It was Julian at a global economic summit, standing between the Prime Minister of the UK and the CEO of Google. He was wearing the exact same black t-shirt and dark denim. In every photo, Davos, Sun Valley, the Met Gala, he was casual. Plain. Authentic. "The meeting was confirmed 3 weeks ago," Lydia whispered, her face pale. "His team was here for the Series C. They were prepared to offer $500 million. $500 million. The number felt like a physical blow. Without that capital, Vanguard Logistics would cease to exist in exactly 11 weeks. Oh, God. Eleanor stood up so abruptly her ergonomic chair slammed into the floor-to-ceiling window behind her. Oh, God. No. She snatched her phone, fumbling as she scrolled through her recently deleted contacts. Her palms were so slick with sweat she had to wipe them on her charcoal blazer twice before she could dial. The phone rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. "You've reached the office of Julian Vance. Please leave a message." "Mr. Vance, Julian, it's Eleanor Sterling. I believe there was a catastrophic misunderstanding at the Meridian this morning. My security team was overzealous, and I was I was under immense pressure. I would be honored to host you at my office this afternoon to properly begin our partnership. Please, call me. She hung up and immediately redialed. Voicemail. She tried a third time. Voicemail. Lydia. Get Grant in here. Now. Grant Thorne, the CFO, burst in 3 minutes later. He was already holding his phone, his face the color of wet ash. Eleanor, please tell me the rumors from the Gilded Meridian aren't true. I didn't know who he was, Grant. He looked like he'd just walked off a bus. He's famous for it. Grant's voice cracked, hitting a high note of pure panic. He wrote a manifesto on LinkedIn about it. The suit is a shroud. It has 6 million likes. He believes if you can't respect a man in a t-shirt, you don't deserve his brilliance. It's his primary vetting tool, Eleanor. He calls it the filter. Eleanor sank into her chair, the leather let out a long, slow squeak that sounded like a groan. Can we fix it? Everyone has a price. We offer him a better seat on the board. We give him more equity. Grant pulled up a news feed on his phone. His jaw tightened. Vance Equity was our only life raft. We've been ghosted by every other major firm in the valley. Julian was interested because he liked our automation tech, but he invests in people, Eleanor. Not just patents. So we apologize. We explain the stress. Look at this. Grant turned the phone around. Hans, the Zurich investor, had already posted to X, formerly Twitter. The post was simple but devastating. Just witness the death of a legacy. If you want to know why Vanguard Logistics is failing, look at how the CEO treats those she deems beneath her. A masterclass in arrogance. It already had 5,000 retweets. Eleanor's desk phone rang. It was the private line, the one only the board of directors used. She picked it up with a shaking hand. Arthur? Eleanor. Her uncle's voice was as cold as a tombstone. I just spoke with the chairman of the Meridian. He told me you had a guest escorted out by security for looking out of place. That guest was Julian Vance. Arthur, I can explain. There is nothing to explain. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get Vance to the table? He doesn't take meetings. He doesn't need the money. He was our last hope. And you humiliated him in front of the European syndicate. It was a mistake. I'm reaching out to him now. Arthur let out a short, bitter laugh. I've known Julian for a decade. He's a man of absolute principle. When someone shows him who they really are, he believes them the first time. He doesn't give second chances. Not to kings, and certainly not to you. The line went dead. Eleanor stared at her reflection in the darkened computer screen. She looked exactly like the Titan she had spent years crafting: perfect hair, perfect suit, perfect office. And yet, she was looking at a ghost. At 3:30 p.m., the industry blog The Terminal posted a breaking story: the $500 million snub, how Eleanor Sterling mistook the world's most successful investor for a loiterer. The article was surgical. It cited her culture of elitism and blindness to talent. By 5 p.m., 4 of her top engineers had already submitted their resignations. She sent one last email to Julian. Subject: Sincere apologies / reevaluating Vanguard. Julian, I realize my behavior was inexcusable. I am prepared to step down as CEO if it means saving the 3,000 jobs at this company. Please, let's talk about the mission. She waited. The sun began to dip below the Hudson, painting her office in a bruised purple light. Finally, a notification popped up. An email from Vance Equity. She clicked it, her breath catching in her throat. It wasn't from Julian. It was from his CFO, Sarah. Ms. Sterling. Mr. Vance has reviewed your apology. He asked me to convey that he is not interested in the mission of a company whose leadership lacks the basic human capacity for respect. He also noted that if you are willing to step down now to save the deal, it proves you knew you were wrong the moment you did it, you just didn't care until you realized he was wealthy. The file on Vanguard Logistics is closed. Permanently. Eleanor let the phone slip from her hand. It hit the plush carpet with a dull thud. She looked out at the city she thought she owned, realizing that the filter had worked perfectly. It had caught her, and now, it was letting her go. The worst thing about bias isn't the grand, sweeping gestures of malice. It's the 1,000 microscopic no's that accumulate before you even open your mouth. 6 months ago, at a global logistics summit, Julian Vance had been mistaken for the catering staff, then a valet, then a courier. Each time, he didn't get angry, he simply took a mental photograph of the person making the assumption. Eleanor Sterling closes her laptop, burying her face in her trembling hands. He had tested her, and she hadn't just failed, she had self-destructed in high definition. Her phone buzzes. It's not Julian. It's a text from her lead PR consultant. Bloomberg and the Information are both calling for comment on the Meridian incident. We need a statement 10 minutes ago. What are we saying? Eleanor doesn't respond. At 8 p.m., she tries Julian's private line again. It doesn't even ring. Straight to a digital dead end. He blocked her. She switches to her personal Gmail, typing with frantic, uncoordinated fingers. Mr. Vance, I understand if you never want to see my face again. I deserve your contempt. But I am begging you to think of the 3,000 employees at Vanguard who have nothing to do with my failure of character. Please. No reply. At 2 a.m., Eleanor is still awake in her glass-walled penthouse, surrounded by minimalist art that now looks like cold monuments to her own ego. She spends the night devouring every interview Julian Vance ever gave. She watches a video of him at a summit for black tech founders. He's wearing a hoodie and worn-in jeans, looking entirely at peace. The system wants you to play by rules that were never written for you, Julian says to the camera. Sometimes, the most radical thing you can do is just show up as yourself. If they respect you, great. If they don't, they just saved you years of working with the wrong people. The audience erupts. Julian smiles. Eleanor closes the laptop and stares into the dark. She hadn't just made a mistake, she had revealed her soul, and Julian Vance had found it wanting. Day 2. 7:15 a.m. Eleanor stands in the lobby of Vance Equity headquarters in Chicago. She is still wearing the charcoal suit from yesterday. It's wrinkled. There's a faint coffee stain on the left cuff from the turbulent red-eye flight. She looks less like a titan of transport and more like a woman who has been through a war. Vance Equity is 40 floors of intimidating glass and steel. The lobby smells of rain and expensive ozone. Eleanor approaches the black marble desk. The receptionist, Ava, looks up with practiced neutrality. Good morning. I'm here to see Julian Vance. Ava's fingers hover over the keys. Do you have an appointment, Miss Sterling? No. But it's a matter of life or death for 3,000 people. Tell him it's Eleanor. Ava speaks quietly into a headset, her eyes darting to Eleanor's disheveled state. She hangs up. I'm sorry. Mr. Vance's schedule is fully committed today. I'll wait, Eleanor says. He could be in sessions until 8 p.m., ma'am. Then I'll be here at 8:01. Eleanor takes a seat in a sharp, sculptural chair by the window. 9 a.m., the lobby fills with analysts and VCs. They recognize her. The whispers start. 11:30 a.m., Ava brings her a bottle of water. Are you sure you don't want to leave a message? I'm sure. 1:15 p.m., Eleanor sends a messenger to buy the most understated, elegant arrangement of white lilies from a shop down the street. She includes a note on hotel stationery: I judged you before I knew you. Please give me 15 minutes to apologize in person. At 1:45 p.m., Ava's phone rings. She listens, nods, and looks at Eleanor. Mr. Vance will see you for 15 minutes. Conference room 4B. Floor 4. The elevator ride feels like a descent into a vacuum. Room 4B is small, functional, devoid of the mahogany and gold Eleanor is used to. Julian is already there, sitting at the head of a simple oak table. He's in a gray Henley and dark jeans. He doesn't stand. Ms. Sterling. Sit. Eleanor sits, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles are white. Mr. Vance, I came here to. Stop. He holds up a hand. His voice is a low, controlled frequency. Before you offer the apology you spent 6 hours rehearsing on the plane, let's be clear about one thing. You keep saying you didn't know who I was. Like that's the defense. Eleanor starts to speak, but he continues. The problem isn't that you didn't recognize a billionaire. The problem is that you saw a black man in a t-shirt and instantly decided he was a vagrant. You refused my hand, you weaponized security, and you did it because your bias told you I didn't belong in your space. The silence in the room is suffocating. If I had been a 60-year-old white man in a cashmere sweater, would you have called the guards? Eleanor's voice is a broken thread. No. I wouldn't have. That's the sauce of the story, Eleanor. Not mistaken identity. Standard issue bias. Tears well in Eleanor's eyes. She doesn't wipe them away, she lets them fall onto the oak table. You're right. I've lived in a bubble of my own making. I am ashamed. Julian leans back, studying her with the same analytical intensity he uses for a market crash. You sat in my lobby for 6 hours today. Yesterday, you had me removed in 3 minutes. It's amazing how quickly your perspective shifts when you need a check. I am here for the company, she whispers. For the employees. If you want me to resign, I will. Just save them. Julian slides a single sheet of paper across the table. I will invest. On these conditions. No negotiations. Eleanor reads the list. Her breath hitches. 1. Public admission, a full, unvetted press release admitting to the racial profiling incident. 2. Board overhaul, the board must be 40% diverse within 12 months. 3. Personal penalty, a $5 million donation from Eleanor's personal estate to Chicago's South Side Tech Initiative. 4. The audit, an independent cultural audit of Vanguard with full transparency to the public. 5. Re-education, 6 months of intensive, one-on-one bias coaching for Eleanor. You agree to every line, or I walk, Julian says. And this time, I don't leave a trail for you to follow. Eleanor looks at the paper. It is the total dismantling of her reputation. It is the end of the Eleanor Sterling the world knew. But it is the only way the 3,000 people who trust her get to keep their homes. I agree, she says, her voice finally steady. Good, Julian stands up. You have 48 hours to schedule the press conference. Don't be late. My attorneys are drafting the ironclad, Julian says, his voice like cold granite. If the independent audit uncovers systemic discrimination beyond this incident, which we both know it will, I pull the funding immediately. And I make the reason the front page of the journal. Eleanor nods, the air in her lungs feeling like lead. One more thing. Julian stands, signaling the end of her 15 minutes. This isn't a penance. It's an exorcism. If you can't commit to the death of your ego, tell me now so I can go back to my life. I commit, Eleanor says. Her legs are trembling, but she stands. Thank you, Julian. He doesn't reach for her hand. He doesn't even look back as he moves toward the door. Don't thank me. Thank the 3,000 families whose mortgages are tied to your software. They're the only reason you're still in the room. Eleanor walks to the elevator. In the polished steel of the doors, she sees a woman who looks 10 years older than the Titan who woke up yesterday morning. She has 48 hours to do the one thing she spent a lifetime avoiding: tell the truth. Day 3. Vanguard Logistics Headquarters. The press room is a jungle of glass, black lenses, and heat. The air conditioning is humming, but it can't fight the warmth of 40 high-powered cameras. Eleanor stands at the podium. No makeup artist touched her face today. No PR firm scrubbed her statement to make it market-ready. She looks into the glass eyes of the cameras and sees herself, small, fragile, and exposed. 3 days ago, she begins, her voice cracking before she catches it. I committed a profound act of racial profiling. A wave of camera flashes rolls through the room like lightning. The clicking of shutters is a deafening, mechanical roar. I refuse to shake the hand of Julian Vance, a man who traveled across the country to save this company. I judged him based on a stereotype, his casual attire, and the color of his skin. I chose to see a threat instead of a partner. I called security on a guest. I humiliated a human being in a public lobby because I thought I was superior. Her throat constricts, but she pushes through the shame. There is no context that excuses this. It wasn't stress. It was bias. And I am here to detail the cost of that bias. She reads the terms of the Vance agreement. Her voice steadies as she hits the data points: facts are safer than feelings. A $5 million personal forfeiture to the Detroit Tech Equity Fund. A 40% diversity mandate for the board of directors within 1 year. An independent cultural audit of Vanguard's history. She looks up, meeting the eyes of a young reporter in the third row. Success is a hollow shell if it is built on the exclusion of others. I hope my failure serves as a warning: your assumptions have consequences. Real, human consequences. The questions hit her like shrapnel. Are you resigning? I am transitioning out of the CEO role within 30 days, she says. Is an apology enough for $500 million? Words are never enough, Eleanor replies. I will spend the rest of my career proving I heard what Julian Vance said. By 6 p.m., the digital world has eaten the story whole. CNBC, Sterling admits profiling, Vanguard lives to fight another day. The Verge, the T-shirt that toppled a titan. The board of directors meets that night in an emergency session. Eleanor sits in her apartment, watching the lights of Manhattan, waiting for the call she knows is coming. At 9:15 p.m., the chairman of the board, her own mentor, calls. Eleanor. The vote was unanimous. You are removed as CEO effective tonight. You'll retain a non-voting board seat for 6 months to assist with the transition. After that, we sever ties. Who is taking over? She asks quietly. Dr. Eris Thorne, the chairman says. He's been our COO for 4 years. He has the vision we should have been following all along. Eris Thorne. A brilliant man she had overlooked for years because he didn't command the room in the way she thought a leader should. He was quiet, meticulous, and black. She realized then that she hadn't just ignored Julian Vance, she had been ignoring the talent right in front of her for a decade. Vanguard Logistics looks different now. The executive wing isn't a museum of charcoal suits and whispered golf scores anymore. The Council of Inclusion meets every Tuesday in the boardroom Eleanor once used for her throne room meetings. Dr. Eris Thorne stands before the company at an all-hands meeting. He clicks a remote, and the results of the Julian Vance mandated audit fill the screens. The numbers are a gut punch. 92% of senior leadership was white prior to the incident. Promotion disparity: Black and Latino employees were promoted at a rate 45% lower than their white counterparts with identical performance metrics. The silence factor: 25 HR complaints regarding microaggressions had been filed in 3 years. 0 resulted in disciplinary action. This is the ghost we were living with, Eris tells the silent room. Now, look at the pivot. Diverse candidate interviews are up 70%. The promotion gap has narrowed to 12% in just 6 months. 85% of staff now report a high sense of belonging. In the very back row, Eleanor Sterling watches. She is no longer the center of the universe. She is a shadow, a former CEO whose name is a cautionary tale. She sees employees who used to shrink when she walked by now laughing and debating with Eris. She hasn't been redeemed, but she is finally awake. The documentary, The Gilded Filter, premieres on Netflix a week later. It opens with the grainy security footage from the Meridian. It's silent, but the clarity is haunting. You see Eleanor's lip curl. You see her snap her fingers for security. You see the exact moment she decides Julian Vance doesn't exist. As the screen fades to black, a final quote from Julian Vance appears. The most expensive thing in the world is a closed mind. It costs you more than money, it costs you the future. The documentary, The Gilded Filter, features 15 interviews that peel back the layers of a legacy built on exclusion. Former Vanguard employees speak from the shadows, their silhouettes sharp against neutral backdrops. I was the only black woman in the engineering pod, one voice says, digitally altered to a lower pitch. At the holiday gala, 3 different executives asked if I was part of the catering staff. I'd been their lead systems architect for 3 years. Another voice, a Latino manager, adds, I was told I was too aggressive in scrums. My white colleagues, who spoke with the exact same cadence and volume, were called assertive visionaries. It's a specialized language designed to keep you in your place. Julian Vance appears on screen, his Manhattan loft gleaming behind him. This happens every day to people who don't have my bank account, he says calmly. The only difference is I had the leverage to demand a receipt. Most people just have to swallow the insult and move on. That is the tragedy of the filter. Eleanor Sterling agreed to be interviewed for the final segment. She looks different, the tight Chanel suits have been replaced by a simple knit sweater, her hair softer, her face etched with the exhaustion of a public trial. Do you understand that what you did was racial profiling? The filmmaker asks. Yes, Eleanor says, her gaze steady on the lens. I saw a black man in a t-shirt and I made an instantaneous, biased judgment. I didn't see a person, I saw a stereotype I had been trained to fear or dismiss. If Julian hadn't been a billionaire, I never would have apologized. I would have felt safe in my ignorance. That's the most haunting part of this. The documentary goes viral, racking up 12 million views in a month. It becomes mandatory viewing in MBA programs from Stanford to INSEAD. But the digital reckoning is followed by a legal one. 3 former employees file a massive class action discrimination lawsuit. The 90-page complaint is a roadmap of Eleanor's blind spots, featuring leaked emails with subject lines like, culture fit concerns, and, Polish issues. One email, regarding a brilliant candidate from an HBCU, read, great credentials, but doesn't seem to project the high-end Vanguard image. The case settles out of court for an undisclosed 7-figure sum. Eleanor's personal fortune takes the hit. Her lawyers release a statement acknowledging systemic failures in leadership, but the industry has already moved on. 12 major tech firms announce voluntary audits. VC firms begin requiring inclusion metrics before releasing Series B funding. The Vanguard incident becomes the 2026 benchmark for corporate accountability. For Eleanor, the consequences are felt in the quiet moments. The grocery store, a woman in Pacific Heights recognizes her and abandons her cart just to tell Eleanor she's a disgrace to the city. The restaurant, a hostess at a half-empty bistro tells her they are fully booked the moment she sees the name on the reservation. The social circle, invitations to charity galas and board seats dry up. She is no longer a titan, she is a case study. She begins intensive bias coaching with Dr. Kesha Moore. I thought donating to the right causes was enough, Eleanor admits during a session. That's passive allyship, Eleanor, Dr. Moore responds. Passive allyship doesn't stop you from calling security on a man because of his clothes. You have to be changed, not just perform change. The chandeliers of the Gilded Meridian still throw rainbow patterns across the marble floors, but the atmosphere has shifted. Vanguard Logistics is hosting its annual investor summit. Julian Vance walks through the entrance at 9 a.m. He's wearing a navy polo and khakis, his leather bag over his shoulder. Eleanor is waiting at the door. She isn't holding court or clutching a champagne flute. She is simply waiting for him. "Mr. Vance," she says, extending her hand. He takes it. The handshake is firm, professional, and, for the first time, equal. "Thank you for the invitation, Eleanor." The use of her first name was earned over 12 months of grueling quarterly check-ins, transparent audits, and uncomfortable conversations. It wasn't a gift, it was a result. They walk into the main ballroom together. The room is a mosaic of different backgrounds, styles, and voices. Dr. Eris Thorne, the CEO, takes the stage. "This year has been transformational," Eris says, clicking to a slide that shows revenue up 127%. "The merger worked. The tech is thriving. But the numbers aren't the story. The story is the culture," Eris continues. "Our employee satisfaction is at an all-time high of 4.8/5. We closed the promotion gap. We didn't just save the 3,000 jobs, we made them worth having." Eris gestures to the executive team standing in the front row. "Out of 10 people, 4 are people of color, 5 are women, and 1 uses a wheelchair. It is a leadership team that actually looks like the world they move products through." The documentary ends with a split screen. Left side, the grainy security footage of Eleanor refusing to shake Julian's hand a year ago. Right side, a photo of them standing together today, looking at the new board. The final text on the screen reads, "Accountability is not a moment. It is a practice." The screen fades to black. The ballroom is silent, save for the hum of the HVAC system and the occasional shutter click. It is the closing session of the Future of Equity Summit, hosted in the very same hotel where Eleanor Sterling once ordered security to remove a loiterer. On stage, 2 armchairs sit opposite a Bloomberg moderator. In one sits Julian Vance, relaxed in his signature navy polo. In the other sits Eleanor Sterling. She wears a simple blazer, her posture open, her face devoid of the haughty armor she wore for 20 years. "Mr. Vance," the moderator begins, glancing at her notes. "A year ago, you were escorted out of this building on Ms. Sterling's orders. Today, you are co-investors in a $250 million fund. The internet calls this the ultimate revenge arc, but you call it something else. Why are you sitting here?" Julian leans forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Because revenge is easy. Revenge is a transaction. What we are doing here is construction." He gestures to Eleanor. "Ms. Sterling did something rare in corporate America. When she was caught, she didn't hide behind a PR crisis team. She didn't issue a non-apology. She accepted the humiliation, she paid the price, personally and professionally, and she did the ugly, unglamorous work of unlearning a lifetime of bias." The moderator turns to Eleanor. "Eleanor, if you could speak to the woman you were walking into that lobby 12 months ago, what would you say?" Eleanor takes a breath. She looks out at the audience, a sea of faces that includes Dr. Eris Thorne, her former COO, now the CEO she reports to. "I would tell her," Eleanor's voice trembles slightly but holds firm, "that her privilege has made her blind. I would tell her that she is about to harm a human being because she cannot see past her own assumptions. And I would tell her that it will take losing her title, her reputation, and her ego to finally understand that dignity is not something you grant people because they are billionaires. It is something they possess because they exist." Applause ripples through the room, not the polite golf claps of her past life, but something heavier, more respectful. I am grateful Julian gave me a second chance, Eleanor adds, looking at him. But no one should have to be on the cover of Forbes to get a seat at the table. Backstage, the lights are dim. The adrenaline of the panel fades, leaving a quiet intimacy between the two. I know I've said this in the board minutes, Eleanor says, stopping Julian before he heads to his car. But thank you. For not just walking away when you could have destroyed me. Julian stops. He looks at her, really looks at her. I didn't do it for you, Eleanor. His voice is kind, but it carries the weight of history. I did it for every black founder who gets asked for their ID at their own launch party. I did it for every Latino engineer who gets told they are too aggressive for leadership. I did it because if I destroyed you, you become a victim. If I changed you, you become a precedent. Eleanor nods, accepting the truth of it. I understand. They shake hands. It isn't a business deal. It's a peace treaty. The impact of that handshake is measurable in hard data. The Vance Equity Black Founder Fund now manages $250 million. The portfolio, 47 companies funded. 89% are still operating profitably. The human cost, 2,300 new jobs created in marginalized communities. Julian's TED Talk, "The Suit is a Lie," hits 18 million views. It becomes part of the core curriculum in 140 business schools worldwide. Eleanor never regains the CEO title. She serves as the non-executive chair of the board, offering guidance but leaving the decisions to Eris Thorne. She teaches one seminar per semester at Columbia Business School, Unconscious Bias in Executive Leadership. The class is always full. She is not redeemed. She is not a hero. She is simply a woman who broke, and in the breaking, found a way to be useful. The documentary The Gilded Filter ends with Julian Vance sitting in his studio, looking directly into the lens. The fourth wall breaks. A year ago, Julian says, his voice calm and resonant, a woman judged me by my skin color and my clothes. She refused to touch my hand. She tried to erase me from a room. He pauses, letting the silence hang. She was wrong. But here is the part that matters, she owned it. She didn't hide. She didn't sue. She did the work. He leans closer to the camera. This isn't a story about one bad person becoming good. It's about systems. The systems in our heads that tell us who matters and who is the help. Those systems don't change with a viral tweet. They change with sustained, uncomfortable action. They change when people with power stop using it to exclude and start using it to build. So, here is my question to you. The camera zooms in slightly. When was the last time you decided who someone was before they opened their mouth? Have you ever walked past someone's humanity to get to a transaction? If you were in Eleanor's shoes, if you were wrong, publicly and painfully, would you have the courage to fix it? Or would you protect your ego? Let that sink in. Real change isn't a movie. It's daily. It's boring. It's forever. Examine your bias. Support diverse businesses. Demand accountability. Because respect is not a conditional offer. It is a birthright. Change is possible. But only if you do the work. Fade to black.